Okay, I have to tell you what happened this morning because I'm still a little rattled by it, and I think you need to know how this reading came to exist. I don't usually read in the morning. I'm a night person with my cards always have been. The energy is quieter, my head is clearer, I can actually hear. So this morning, I had zero intention of touching my deck. I was standing in my kitchen with a piece of toast in my hand, half awake, thinking about absolutely nothing. And I got this jolt. Not a feeling a jolt, like someone had grabbed my elbow. And I heard, as clearly as I've ever heard anything, he knows. That's it. 2 words. He knows. And I said, out loud, to my kitchen, he knows what? Which, I'm aware, is an insane thing to say to a kitchen. But the energy behind it was so urgent, so specific, that I put the toast down and I went and got my cards without even sitting down properly. And I pulled right there, standing at the counter. And what came out made me actually gasp. Because whatever it is that this masculine found out, it has completely upended him, and it's making him move. Fast, nervously, like a man who just realized he's running out of time. So that's why we're here. I didn't plan this reading. This reading planned me. Hi, my loves. It's Elena, and welcome to Elena Tarot. Something has come to light on this masculine side, a piece of information, a discovery, a realization, and it has turned him upside down. He is not calm. He is not composed. He is rushing, and he's rushing badly. In the way people rush when they've just understood something that changes the entire picture. And I'm going to tell you exactly what he found out and what it's doing to him. Grab something to hold on to. Let's go. The Discovery First card, and I'm going straight to the discovery itself, the thing he found out. The card is the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords is a sword breaking through clouds. It is the card of a sudden, blinding piece of clarity, a truth arriving all at once, cutting clean through the fog. And I want to be precise about what kind of truth this is, because it matters. The Ace of Swords isn't a slow realization that dawned on him over months. It is a cut. One clean stroke. One moment where the fog he'd been living in was simply gone, and he saw something with total, terrible clarity. So, what did he find out? He found out that the way he'd been thinking about you, the whole framework, the whole set of assumptions, was wrong. That's what the Ace of Swords does. It doesn't add information, it corrects it. And what got corrected in him was some fundamental misunderstanding about who you are, or what you felt, or what this connection actually is, or what he stood to lose. He had been operating on bad information, some story he'd told himself, some assumption he never questioned, and something happened that shattered it in one stroke. And now he's staring at a completely different reality than the one he was living in yesterday. Let me make this practical, because you've experienced this and you'll recognize the feeling. Think of a moment when you learned one single fact that reorganized everything. Maybe someone told you something a friend had said about you. Maybe you found out a person you dismissed had been quietly in love with you. Maybe you discovered the reason someone acted the way they did, and suddenly, every interaction you'd ever had with them meant something different in retrospect. That's the sensation. It's not that new information got added to the pile, it's that the pile rearranged itself. Everything you already knew suddenly meant something else. That is a violent, disorienting experience. It's what he's going through. Every memory he has of you just changed meaning, all at once, because of one thing he found out. Comment the cut if you know that feeling, one fact arriving and rewriting everything that came before it. Because that just happened to him. About you. And I want to add something about the violence of the Ace of Swords, because I don't think people appreciate what this card actually does to a person. Most realizations are gentle. They arrive over weeks. You have time to adjust, to absorb, to slowly rearrange your worldview around the new information. But the Ace of Swords doesn't do that. It's a blade. It arrives whole, and it arrives instantly, and there's no adjustment period. 1 second you understand your life, the next second you don't. And you're standing in the wreckage of an assumption you didn't know you had. And there's a cruelty in that specific kind of clarity, because it's retroactive. This is what people miss. When you learn something that changes the meaning of your past, you don't just lose the future you thought you had, you lose the past you thought you had. 2. Every memory gets audited. Every conversation gets replayed with new subtitles. He's currently going back through the entire history of you and him, and watching all of it means something different than it meant when it happened. Moments he thought were fine were not fine. Moments he thought he had time were moments he was losing you. That's not a pleasant afternoon. That's a man being shown the true version of a story he thought he already knew, and hating every frame of it. Next card. What he actually found out okay. Second card. And now we get specific, because the title promises a specific message, and I intend to deliver one. This card tells me the content of what he discovered. The card is the Six of Swords, reversed. The Six of Swords upright is a boat crossing water, someone leaving, moving on, journeying away from a difficult shore. Reversed, that journey is halted. Reversed, the crossing doesn't happen, or gets interrupted, or reverses course. And here's what I'm being shown, and I want you to sit down for it. He found out that you were leaving. Not necessarily physically, maybe, but more likely, he found out that you were moving on emotionally, energetically, actually. He found out you'd let go, that you'd stopped waiting, that you had reached some point of acceptance or detachment or genuine forward motion, that you were building a life that didn't have a him-shaped hole in it anymore. Maybe he heard something. Maybe he saw something. Maybe someone told him casually, not knowing what they were doing, "Oh, she's doing really well actually. She seems happy. She's got a whole new thing going on." And the reverse Six of Swords is the sound of his entire nervous system slamming on the brakes. Because here's what he'd assumed, and this is the bad information the Ace of Swords cut through. He assumed you'd wait. Not consciously, maybe, he'd never have said it out loud. But somewhere in the back of his mind was this comfortable, unexamined belief that the door would stay open, that you'd be there, that he had time and could sort himself out and come back when he was ready, and you'd still be standing where he left you. That assumption let him take his time. That assumption let him be slow and cowardly and careful. And he just found out that assumption is dead. You are not waiting. The boat is leaving the shore. And it turns out he wasn't on it. Here's the practical picture, and it is brutal in its accuracy. Have you ever watched someone treat a job, casually show up late, coast, take it entirely for granted, right up until the moment they overhear that they might be let go? And suddenly, they are the most attentive, hardest working, most present person in that building? The work didn't change. The job didn't change. The assumption of permanence changed. That's the entire psychological mechanism here. He was coasting on the assumption of your permanence. He just found out you're not permanent. And nothing activates a person like discovering that the thing they took for granted is genuinely actually leaving. Comment the door closed if you have in fact been moving on. If you finally stopped waiting. If you let go. Because he found out and it broke something open in him. Now I want to say something to you specifically, and I want you to actually hear it rather than let it slide past. Because I know there's a temptation right now to look at this card and think, "Oh, so my moving on worked." Moving on is what brought him back. And I need to sever that thought before it takes root, because it will poison the whole thing. The moment you start moving on in order to be found out, you are no longer moving on. You are performing distance as bait. And here's the thing, it doesn't work. And it never has. Because what actually reached him wasn't the appearance of your departure. It was the reality of it. He didn't panic because you posted something. He panicked because he encountered something genuinely changed in you. And genuine cannot be faked. And every person on earth can smell the difference between a woman who has actually let go and a woman who is standing very still hoping you'll notice she's letting go. So the reason this reading exists is that you actually left. You did the real thing. And I don't want you to look back at your own healing and reframe it as a strategy. Because it wasn't one, it was you saving your own life. And it happened to also wake somebody up, and those two things are not the same and must never be confused. Keep going the way you were going. Not because it summons him, because it was already the right direction. Next card. The Panic OK third card. And this shows me his internal state right now, and it is not pretty. And it is not calm. The card is the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a man on a charging horse. Speed, urgency, impulse, someone moving fast, fueled by fire, not thinking clearly, acting first and figuring it out later. And that's him. Right now. That's exactly the state he's in. This is where the nervously rushing in of the title lives. Because he is rushing. The clarity of the Ace of Swords and the panic of the reverse Six of Swords have combined into a kind of frantic urgency that has him moving before he has a plan. And I want you to understand something crucial about the Knight of Wands. He's not moving because he's confident. He's moving because he's scared. Fear and urgency look identical from the outside. A man charging toward you can be charging because he's certain or because he's terrified of what happens if he doesn't. This one is the second kind. So expect chaos. Expect him to be a little clumsy about this. The Knight of Wands does not make elegant approaches. He doesn't wait for the perfect moment or craft the perfect words. He charges, often at a bad time, often saying the wrong thing, often overwhelming the person he's charging toward. Because he can't stand still anymore. Standing still is what got him here. Standing still is what let you get on the boat. Let me make this practical, because I think it'll help you interpret what's coming. There's a very particular quality to fear-driven urgency that you can learn to spot. It's the difference between a man who takes you to dinner because he'd like to see you and a man who calls you at 11 p.m. because he can't sleep. It's the difference between a considered decision and a compulsion. Fear-driven action tends to come at strange times, in strange forms, with an intensity that's slightly out of proportion to the moment. It has a jagged edge to it. So if you get contact from this person and it feels a little frantic, a little too much, a little disorganized, that's not a red flag. That's the Knight of Wands. That's a man who just found out the door is closing and is running for it without checking whether his shoes are on. But here's the shadow of this card, and I'd be doing you a disservice not to name it. Because the Knight of Wands has a well-known problem. He does not finish things. He is glorious at the charge and terrible at the siege. He can sprint at you with tremendous fire, and then, 3 weeks later, find that the fire has simply gone out, not because he lied, but because fire is what he is. And fire consumes its fuel and dies. So the Knight of Wands rushing in tells you something true about the intensity of this moment. It tells you nothing whatsoever about the duration of what follows. And I want you holding both of those facts at once, because a lot of women get swept up in the charge and forget to ask what happens after the horse stops. Intensity is not commitment. Speed is not depth. A man can mean every single word he says while he's galloping and still have nothing left in the tank when he arrives. Watch for what he does at walking pace. That's where you'll learn who he is. Next card. What he's afraid of specifically, okay. Fourth card. And this names the exact fear that's driving all this motion. The card is the Ten of Cups. Reversed, the Ten of Cups upright is the whole happy life, the family, the warmth, the fulfilled emotional future. It is the card of the good ending. Reversed, it is that good ending slipping away. It is the vision of the beautiful future, held up to the light and seen to be evaporating. And that's what he's afraid of. Very specifically, he's not afraid of losing your attention, or your admiration, or the convenience of knowing you were there. He is afraid of losing a future. Because here's what happened in the moment of the Ace of Swords. When he found out you were moving on, he didn't just feel a pang of loss for the present. He suddenly saw in one terrible flash the entire life he'd been unconsciously assuming he'd eventually have with you. A life he'd never articulated, never planned, never even fully admitted was in his head. And he watched it dissolve in real time. That's the reverse Ten of Cups. It's a man watching a future he never told you about, never told himself about, go up in smoke because he was too slow. And that is why he's rushing. Not to save a connection, to save a life he only just realized he wanted. Let me give you the practical version, because it's one of the strangest and truest things about people. We are frequently unaware of our own plans until they're threatened. You don't know how much you wanted something until it's about to be gone, and then, in a single instant, you can suddenly see the entire imagined future you'd been quietly building without ever consciously deciding to. It happens with jobs, with cities, with friendships, with people. The imagined future lives in a room in your mind you never visit, and you only discover it exists when someone threatens to demolish the building. That's what happened to him. He found out you were leaving, and he opened a door in his own mind he'd never opened. And behind it was an entire life with you, in it that he had somehow been assuming would happen, and it was on fire. Comment the future he never told Emmy about. If this lands, if you can feel that this person had a whole imagined life with you, they never once mentioned. And I want to name the specific tragedy of this card, because it is genuinely tragic, and I don't want to be flippant about it. The reverse Ten of Cups is a man mourning something he never actually built. He is grieving a house he never laid a single brick of. And the reason that's so painful is that he cannot even claim the loss cleanly. He never proposed the future, never named it, never worked for it, never gave you any reason to believe in it. He simply carried it around privately, assuming it would materialize on its own, the way you assume the sun will come up. That's the shape of a very particular kind of male failure, and I want to say it plainly because you may need to hear it said. He treated a future with you as an inevitability rather than a project. He never courted it, he never earned it. He just quietly expected it to be there when he got around to it. And now he's discovering that futures are not weather. They don't just happen to you. They are built deliberately by two people who decide to build them, and while he was assuming, you were building a different one, alone, brick by brick, in the absence of him. So yes, feel for him. It is a real grief. But notice, please, that the thing he lost was never actually yours to give him. It was a fantasy he maintained without your participation. And the fact that it's now on fire is not something that was done to him. It's something that failed to be done by him. Next card. The thing he now understands about you. Okay. Fifth card. And this is the correction. This is what he now sees clearly that he'd been blind to before. The card is the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is a woman who builds, who is grounded, self-sufficient, abundant, who does not need saving, does not need anyone's participation to have a good life, and generates her own stability. She is, in the deck, the least available woman there is not because she's cold, but because she is complete. And here's what he now understands. You were never actually dependent on him. He had, on some level, been seeing you as someone who needed him. Not consciously and not cruelly, but there was a comfortable little assumption in his head that his presence in your life was load-bearing, that you'd be a bit lost without him, that his slowness and his ambivalence were survivable for you, because ultimately, where else would you go? And then he found out you'd built a whole life, that you were fine, better than fine, that the structure of your existence did not require him at all, and that his absence had not collapsed anything, and that the woman he thought of as waiting was in fact thriving. The Queen of Pentacles is the moment he saw you clearly. And I want you to understand how completely this reframed you in his mind. He had you filed as someone whose worth was partly a function of her availability to him. Now he sees a woman who is genuinely, independently valuable, abundant, self-generating, complete, and who was giving him access to that abundance as a gift, not out of need. And gifts, he now realizes, can be withdrawn. Practically speaking, this is the oldest lesson in every human relationship, and it never stops being true. Nothing reveals a person's true value like the demonstrated ability to walk away. Not stated ability demonstrated. Anybody can say they don't need someone, but a person who visibly actually builds a full life without you, that person's value becomes suddenly, blindingly obvious because you finally see what they were choosing to give you rather than what you assumed they owed you. He is looking at everything you gave him and reinterpreting all of it as chosen rather than inevitable. And it is devastating him. And I want to sit inside his head for one more second, because there's a specific line of thought running through him that you'd find fascinating. He is currently doing an inventory. He is going back through every single thing you ever did for him, every time you were patient when you didn't have to be, every time you gave him the benefit of the doubt, every time you stayed, every kindness he received without registering it as a kindness, and he is repricing all of it. Because when you thought it was owed, it was worth nothing. Now that he knows it was freely given by a woman who never needed to give it, it's worth everything. That's the Queen of Pentacles delivering her bill. Not out of malice, she doesn't even know she's doing it. She simply stopped giving. And the cessation revealed the value of what had been given. And here's the piece I want you to really understand. You didn't teach him this lesson by explaining it. Explaining it never works. You could have told him 1,000 times what you were worth, and it would have bounced right off, because words don't reprice anything. You taught him by stopping, and that is the only lesson a man like this has ever been able to learn. Comment, he's pricing everything. If you can feel that, if you sense him going back through your entire history and finally seeing what he was handed. Next card. How he approaches okay. Sixth card. And this is the practical one, what he actually does. The card is the Page of Cups. Now this is fascinating because it's a huge tonal shift from the Knight of Wands. The Knight is the internal state, the panic, the charge, the fire. But the Page of Cups is what actually arrives at your door. And the Page of Cups is soft, tentative, vulnerable, a little bit fumbling. So here's the picture. Internally, he's in a full gallop. Externally, what you're going to get is a nervous boy holding out a cup, which is to say the approach is going to be unsteady. He's going to be more emotionally exposed than you've ever seen him. The composure he usually wears is not going to be available to him because he doesn't have the time or the presence of mind to construct it. The Page of Cups is a person offering their feelings without armor, badly, at the wrong moment, because they can't hold them in anymore. And I want to prepare you for a very specific thing. It may not be impressive. He may not say the perfect thing. He may not deliver the great speech you deserved years ago. The Page of Cups fumbles. He might say something too soon, or too much, or in the wrong medium. He might send something at 2 a.m. He might show up somewhere he shouldn't. He might just say something plain and small and inadequate, like "I've been thinking about you," a sentence that carries almost none of the enormity of what's actually happening inside him. Here's the practical thing, and it's a discernment I want to give you. When someone comes at you with a fumbling, imperfect, badly timed approach, you have 2 ways to read it. You can read the form, and the form will look weak, or clumsy, or insufficient. Or you can read the cost. Ask yourself, for this specific person, what did this cost? Because a man who is normally guarded, controlled, composed, and unreachable for that man, sending a nervous, unpolished, vulnerable message costs enormously. The same message from an emotionally open person would mean nothing. From him, it's a mountain. So when it comes, and it comes badly, don't measure it against what a smoother man would have said. Measure it against what he has ever been capable of before. That's the only measurement that tells you the truth. Comment measure the cost if that just changed how you'll read whatever he sends you. And here's a second thing I want to hand you about the Page of Cups, because it's genuinely useful and almost nobody talks about it. A page is a child, not literally, energetically. The Page of Cups is emotional immaturity in its purest, most sincere form. It is somebody feeling something enormous for the first time and having no idea how to carry it, which means he may have very real feelings, and be very bad at feelings. Those two things coexist constantly, and women are often taught to read poor emotional execution as evidence of poor emotional content. It isn't. Some of the deepest feeling in the world lives inside people with absolutely no vocabulary for it. But, and here's where I keep my honesty with you, the fact that he's a page also means he has not done the work. A page is not a king. A page has feelings, a king has mastery of them. And you are not obligated to be somebody's emotional education. You can recognize that his feeling is sincere and still decline to be the classroom in which he learns, at your expense, over years, how to be an emotionally functional adult. Sincerity is the minimum requirement, not an achievement. So receive his fumbling with compassion, absolutely, and then watch, with the Queen of Swords' clear eye, whether the page ever grows up or whether he expects your patience to do the growing for him. Next card. The thing you must understand before he arrives, okay. Seventh card, and this one is a warning, and it's for you, and I'm going to be very straight with you about it. The card is the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups is the card of illusion, of many shimmering, beautiful cups, one of which contains something real and several of which contain fantasy. It is the card of being offered a vision and having to determine whether the vision is true. And here's the warning, my loves, delivered with total love. Urgency is not the same as readiness. He is rushing in. That is real, and it's flattering. And it will feel like the thing you have been waiting years for. But I need you to hold a very clear distinction in your mind. A man who is rushing toward you because he's terrified of losing you is not necessarily a man who has become the person you needed him to be. Panic can produce motion without producing growth. Fear can make a person move fast without making them capable. The Seven of Cups is asking you to look at the shimmering cup he's offering and check what's actually in it. Because there is a version of this where he arrives, gets you back, feels the terror subside, and then, with the fear gone, slowly returns to exactly who he was. The reverse Ten of Cups fear was the engine. If the engine is fear, then the moment the fear is satisfied, the engine stops. So the practical question, and this is the most useful thing in this entire reading, is not does he want me? You have your answer. He does, desperately, and he's proving it. The real question is, has anything about him actually changed? Or has only his level of fear changed? And here's how you tell. Watch for whether he takes any accountability without being asked. Watch for whether he can name, specifically what he did wrong, not I made a mistake, but the actual thing. Watch whether he can tolerate you being unimpressed, or whether he crumbles or lashes out. Watch whether he asks anything about your life, or whether the entire conversation is about his revelation and his feelings and his fear. And most of all, watch what happens once he feels secure again. Because that is when you find out who he really is. And I'll give you the single cleanest test I know, because it cuts through everything. Tell him no. Not forever, just. At some point, to something small. Say you're not free that night. Say you'd rather not talk about that yet. Say you need more time. And then watch what he does with a no. Because a man who has genuinely changed can hold a no. He can absorb it, respect it, and stay steady. It disappoints him, and he stays anyway. But a man who is running purely on fear cannot tolerate a no. Because a no is the very thing he is panicking about. A no is the door closing again. And his entire nervous system is currently organized around preventing that. So he'll push, or he'll guilt you, or he'll get frantic, or he'll go cold to punish you. Or he'll perform a huge wounded collapse designed to make you rush to reassure him. The no is the whole test. Anyone can be wonderful to you when you're saying yes. Give him one small, gentle no, and he will tell you everything about himself in about 4 seconds. The Seven of Cups is asking you to look inside the cup before you drink from it, and a small no is how you look inside. Comment the no test if you're going to use that. And be honest with yourself about what you find. Next card. Where this leaves you, okay. Last card. The card is the Queen of Swords. And I'm so glad. Because after everything his revelation, his panic, his fumbling approach, and my warning, the universe hands you the sharpest, clearest, most sovereign woman in the deck as your final word. The Queen of Swords sees through things. She is not cruel, but she is not fooled. She has been hurt, and it made her clear eyed rather than bitter. She listens to what people say, and she watches what they do, and she notices the gap. And crucially, she makes her decisions from a place of clarity rather than longing. That's who you are now. That's who you became while he was busy assuming you'd wait. The Six of Swords journey you took, the life you built, the letting go you did it, made you her. And here is the enormous, delicious irony of this entire reading. The very thing that has him panicking, the very thing that made him finally see your worth, is the exact same thing that has made you no longer desperate for him to see it. You got sharp. You got clear. You got whole. And so the Queen of Swords is not sitting here asking me whether he's coming back. She's sitting here evaluating, with a steady hand, whether she wants what's coming. That's your position now. That's the seat you're sitting in. He is charging toward a woman who is no longer waiting to be chosen, a woman who is, at this point, doing the choosing. So here's where this leaves you. Not hoping, deciding he found something out and it broke him open and he's coming. Whether he arrives at a woman who is delighted to receive him or a woman who has already gone is entirely up to you. And that, my love, is a very good place to be. But I want to say one more thing about the Queen of Swords, because there's a shadow to her too, and I care about you too much to leave it out. The Queen of Swords, at her worst, becomes so committed to never being fooled again that she refuses to be reached again. She mistakes armor for wisdom. She turns her hard-won clarity into a fortress, and then wonders why nobody ever gets in. So please don't do that. Please don't let his failure make you unreachable. The whole point of becoming the Queen of Swords is not that you now say no to everyone. It's that your yes finally means something, because it's given by a woman who can see clearly and could have said no. A yes from a woman with no discernment is worth very little. A yes from you, now, after everything, that is one of the most valuable things on this earth. Don't withhold it out of principle. Just make sure that when you spend it on someone who has actually shown you who they are, rather than someone who has merely shown you how afraid they are of losing you. Clarity is the point, not coldness. Sharpness is a tool, not a personality. Keep the blade, but keep the heart too. The specific message he is trying to send you, the title of this reading, promises you something specific. And I don't want to hand you a general message and call it specific. So let me sit very still with this energy for a moment and give you the actual thing. Here is the sentence underneath everything he is about to say to you. He may never say it in these words. He may not be capable of saying it in these words. But this is the message, and it is what the cards keep circling back to. I thought I had more time. That's it. That's the whole thing. Every clumsy message he sends, every 2 a.m. impulse, every fumbling half sentence underneath all of it is a man saying, I thought I had more time, and I was wrong. And I have just realized that I spent the time I did have as though it were infinite. And there's a second sentence underneath the first, quieter, that he may not have access to yet. I didn't know I was choosing. I thought I was postponing. Because that's the real error, and it's the specific thing the Ace of Swords cut through. He never experienced himself as rejecting you. He experienced himself as delaying. Every day he didn't act, he thought he was pressing pause. He didn't understand that there is no pause button, that every day he delayed, he was actively choosing. And the choice was accumulating. And it was building a wall between you, brick by brick, while he thought he was standing still. Practically, this is why he's so panicked and so disorganized. Because a man who realizes he rejected you can at least reason with the loss. I made a choice. I have to live with it. But a man who realizes he never made a choice at all, who realizes his indecision was the choice, is in a much stranger and more agonizing position. He is grieving something he never even consciously turned down. He is mourning a life he lost by not doing anything. And there's no framework for that. There's no story he can tell himself where he comes out okay. So when he arrives, listen for it. Listen for I thought I had more time. Listen for a man discovering that indecision is a decision. Because if he can say that out loud, if he can name that he wasn't waiting, he was forfeiting, then something real has actually happened in him. And if he can't, if he acts like he simply woke up one morning and realized how great you are with no accounting for the years, then you're looking at a man in the grip of panic and nothing more. Let me put it together for you. The Ace of Swords was the discovery, one clean stroke of clarity that cut through the fog and rewrote everything he thought he knew. The reverse Six of Swords told us what he found out. You were leaving. You'd let go, you'd moved on, and the door he'd been comfortably assuming would stay open had closed. The Knight of Wands showed his internal state charging, urgent, frantic, driven not by confidence, but by fear. The reverse Ten of Cups named the specific fear, not losing your attention, but watching an entire imagined future one he'd never even told himself about evaporate in real time. The Queen of Pentacles revealed the correction. He now sees that you were never dependent on him, that you are complete and abundant and self-generating, and that everything you ever gave him was a gift rather than an inevitability. The Page of Cups told us how he'll actually arrive, not smoothly, but nervously, vulnerably, fumbling, offering something imperfect that costs him more than it looks like it costs. The Seven of Cups issued the warning. Urgency is not readiness. Panic is not growth. And you must check what's actually in the beautiful cup he's holding out. And the Queen of Swords delivered you your seat clear-eyed, sovereign, deciding rather than hoping. So here's what I want you to carry away, my loves. Something came to light. He knows now, knows what he had, knows what it was worth, knows what he stood to lose, and knows it's not guaranteed anymore. That knowledge has him moving faster than he's ever moved, and less gracefully than he'd like. And he is coming. And notice how the whole sequence hangs together, because it's almost architectural. The discovery created the clarity. The clarity destroyed the assumption. The destroyed assumption revealed the future. The revealed future produced the terror. The terror produced the charge. And the charge is going to arrive at your door, dressed as a nervous boy with a cup in his hands. Every card in this spread is a domino that fell because of the one before it, and the very first domino was you deciding to go. But I want you to notice what this reading did not say. It did not say you owe him a landing. It did not say that his revelation obligates your forgiveness. It did not even say that his rushing is a virtue, panic is not a personality. And terror is not the same as transformation. What it said is that he has finally seen, and that his seeing is genuine and total and devastating to him. What you do with a man who finally sees you is your own business. Just don't confuse his desperation for your validation. You are always worth this. He's just catching up. And you, in the meantime, became a woman who no longer needs him to catch up in order to be all right. And that last part is the actual message of this reading, so let me say it once more with the emphasis it deserves. There are two stories running in parallel here. In one story, a man has a revelation and rushes toward a woman. That's his story, and it's dramatic, and it's the one the title sells, and it's genuinely happening. But there's a second story, and it's the real one, and it's yours. And in your story, a woman spent a long time being taken for granted, and then with no guarantee, no promise, no reward in sight, she got up and built a life anyway. She stopped waiting for someone to arrive, and she started arriving for herself. And she did that before she knew he'd found out. She did it when there was nothing in it for her except her own dignity. That's the story I care about. His panic is a footnote to it. His revelation is a consequence of it. Everything happening on his side of this, reading the discovery, the fear. The rushing is the echo of a decision you made alone, in the dark, with no applause. So if he comes and it works out, wonderful. And if he comes and you look at him and feel nothing but a distant, kind sort of pity, that's wonderful too. Both endings are victories, because you already won the part that mattered. You became someone whose leaving could shake a man awake. And that woman does not need the man to wake up in order to be worth something. That's the reading, my loves. Intense one. My toast went cold, and I never did eat it. If this hit you, if you felt something click into place, if you know exactly what he found out and exactly when like this video on your way out, it genuinely helps these messages find the people they belong to. And subscribe to Elena Tarot if you haven't, because when the cards grab me by the elbow in my own kitchen, you're the first to know. Tell me in the comments which card got you. The discovery? The future he never mentioned? The Queen of Swords you've become? I read every single one. And if you already know exactly who this is, don't name him. Just drop a, so I know the message landed. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for having the strength to move on, to let go, to build something without him. Because that strength is the entire reason he finally woke up. You didn't win him back by waiting. You woke him up by leaving. Never forget the power in that. Thank you for watching.